Okay, principles of passion, take one.
It's Principles of Passion.
Molly and I share a passion.
Hey, I am very passionate.
Oh, how nice.
It is his passion.
Michael and I share a passion.
Bit of a passion for me.
It's my passion.
I've learned a lot, and I followed my passion.
Here's your host, Chris Thomas, with Denora Robles and Dominic Semino on intellectualradio.com. Principles of Passion.
This is Chris Thomas. We are one short of the full party here, but he's on his way. We got to keep it real, though. Keep it on time. My name's Chris Thomas. This is Principles of Passion. You're here on intellectualradio.com. If you're joining us on the radio, follow on Instagram. Your Passion 1ST, Your Passion First. This is my delightful co-host, Denora.
Hola, mi gente. Hi.
And this is the man of the hour. We're still waiting on one person, but this is SIDNEY CROUT, and he's a cybersecurity consultant for a prestigious company here in Chicago. Just to give you the premise of what I want to do here, I'm very passionate about coaching and mentoring. And today I started a new job, which I'm super excited for. It's an opportunity for me to dig into some of the challenges that disenfranchised, underrepresented students are facing as they try and dive into the job market. But a big aspect of that is overcoming barriers and challenges, as well as being mentored and coached. And so for me, for the past 3 years, I've had an awesome opportunity to coach and mentor quite a few young individuals. You'll see Dominic when he steps in, one of them. And I love being inspired by people. I love hearing stories of people just grinding, and taking it to the next level and staying true to what they're passionate about. And when I heard Sydney's story, I mean, I was floored. I'm floored when I hear a lot of people's stories. There he is, man of the hour. Dominic Semino, second co-host. But no, again, I'm floored by some stories, and so wanted to just have a platform. I know there's a lot of you out there listening now that may be going through a barrier or challenge as you follow your passion. Call in. I'm not saying you're going to get expert advice from us. I know it's intellectualradio.com. I'm not saying we're going to give you some points of views. And I think that sometimes people just need to talk through things. But also on the flip side, I want to be inspired. I want to hear from stories of people that have grinded, because I think those get lost sometimes in the success, is that grind. So, I mean, what are you passionate about, Sid?
I would say passionate about my family, passionate about cybersecurity. I feel like overall, I've always kind of been an ambitious guy most of my life, but I had no direction on what to really put that energy towards. And when I found cyber, that kind of cemented it for me.
Yeah. How did you come across cyber initially?
Yeah, so I actually figured it out while I was working in IT.
Just backtrack a little bit. How did you get into IT?
Yeah, so initially I had a roommate who was doing IT, and I was doing security at the time. I was working as a security guard. Shout out to all the security guards out there.
Get it.
Your guys are grinding. And doing security, every night, long nights, just kind of sitting around, monotonous, not really putting my energy towards anything. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, but I had that rumbling in the back of my mind, like, you got to do something. You got to figure something out, right? So seeing my roommate come home every day, and he was super happy. He's like talking about all these problems he's solving every day. And I'm like, dude, I'm fixing your computer for you. So let me figure this out too. Maybe I can get into this. And he's like, you can just look up some programs online and go from there. So I was on the train and I saw, the Computer Systems Institute on there, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try it out.
So you started just learning.
Mm-hmm.
You went through boredom a little bit.
Yeah.
Was any of that through motivation, or was it pure boredom? Or what else was going on in your mind at that time frame?
Like I was saying, I always had this weird feeling of like I could do more, but I didn't know what that was, right? And when I came across IT, it gave me a vehicle to really express that, right?
Yeah,
So I was
yeah.
like, man, this is something I could put a lot into.
Yeah.
And if I do, who knows what can happen?
Right.
And I hadn't had anything exciting like that in my life up until that point. You know, security wasn't going to get that for me. So I was like, I got to do this. Let me just see what happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm here now.
Awesome. So to those of you out there grinding right now, IT was just a vehicle for him, right? I think we all at young ages, and even as we get older and progress, we come to points in our life where we just want to do better, right? We just want to be awesome, right? But what are we going to use to help us get to that awesomeness?
Yeah.
You know, and I know I've struggled with it. And it's something I've had to work with. So I can imagine for folks that didn't have the resources, how much of a challenge it can be. That's awesome, man. And then, so you got into security just by means of wanting to do better. And so once in security, like, tell me about some of those challenges getting in and kind of where you are right now with those.
So the first challenge I want to point out is there's a misconception that you have to have a master's degree or be an expert in cybersecurity to get into it. And that is not true at all. That's the first barrier I had to overcome because my whole life I was told to get into something like that, you have to be really, really good with computers. And I didn't know that you could just get a job and then build your way up over time and then figure it out from there.
Right.
And when that door opened for me, it was initially when I was working and I started kind of dabbling with different processes inside of different organizations that were mainly focused on security. And I was like, wow, I can firewall stuff. I can definitely get into this. I like capturing packets on interfaces. This is really cool. This is way cooler than resetting passwords, you know? So that's when I was
Dom's over there just clearing up because he's just now into security now.
So Dom totally gets this. Yeah.
How are you kind of relating to some of the things that he's saying in terms of his pathway to getting there?
I would say it's similar, but there are things that differ. So like for me, it was I kind of didn't know what I wanted at first. So yeah, definitely very similar. And then I kind of just worked my way up. And so I totally agree. I totally feel that. You
got to bust your butt, you know, and just want to be better. For those of you that are either following us on Instagram or on intellectualradio.com, if you want to call in, and I think really what we want to drive at today is emotion in the workplace, right? There's a lot of components to passion and what goes into that. We want to try and hit on something different every day. 708-223-8953 is the number. What's something that you've gone through recently while trying to follow your passion, where your emotions have almost gotten the best of you, or they have gotten the best of you? I want to hear from some people that are either struggling with working through this or that have gone through this in the past and either have a success or a takeaway from it as to what they learned. I guess I would say, before we go into that, you guys think about that on the lines. You guys do a recap of what the do you remember what they all are?
I don't remember all of them. Oh, the principles or what we went over last week?
Just the principles.
Principles.
You do the recap of last week, then I'll go over the principles.
Okay, cool. So recap of last week, we went over attitude. We talked about attitude in the workplace and how it kind of tied into this week's episode of emotion and how they're you have to learn to control them, and sometimes, for lack of better terms, like you have to bite the bullet. You know, like you have to do what you got to do and know what's right from wrong.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to pick from two rights.
Yeah.
You know, or definitely two wrongs, right? It's both seem wrong, but you got to pick one because it's
exactly
life.
And that's why you have to decide when to do the right thing and put those emotions to the side, because even that's one in its own.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to recap, and again, these are my principles. I want to hear from some of y'all as we go on with these episodes. What are your principles? What are things that you guys live by and that define you? For me, do the right thing. Attitude is everything. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. Believe in yourself. Set goals. Stay organized. 85% of all jobs are filled by networking. Diligence is the father of persistence. If you don't have an education, You better have a craft or a lot of money. And even if you have all three, nothing in life is guaranteed. And the last one is be elite. And so those are things that have helped me, I think, find my passion, define it, and really follow it, as I kind of embark on this new journey.
Yeah.
Denora, let me step out of the box a little with you and just ask, can you recall a time where you were just super emotional about something and man, you just had to backpedal, or you just
I think all the time. Being honest. No, and what I mean by that is in the world of management, you constantly are dealing with emotions. Let it be your own, let it be your coworker, let it be your teammates, let it be your doctors, let it be your patients. So one person handling all those emotions, yeah, I have to use facts in order to, I don't want to say control because you don't really have to control it.
Right.
You just have to learn how to drive it, I would say. So yeah, I deal with it all the time. I mean, there's too many incidents. I mean, we'll be here. That'd be another podcast on its own. But yeah, I would say it's better to focus on where does that come from? Like emotion, where does it root from? Where does it start?
Right.
Why? What bubbles that up? And is it really negative?
Right.
Or is it positive?
Right.
When you mean emotions, do you mean negative or positive? I guess the question's to you.
So that's a very good question. I mean, let's look at some of these definitions we have.
Yeah.
Excitement, the affective aspect of consciousness, feeling, a state of feeling.
Yeah. Very cool.
Here's a good one. A conscious mental reaction, such as anger or fear, subjectively experienced as strong feeling, usually directed toward a specific object and typically accompanied by, here's key, physiological and behavioral changes in the body.
That one resonates with me a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like emotion, from what I understand, the root of that is energy and motion.
Yes.
So it's more so where is it being directed and how are you using it, right? If you are feeling afraid, you're gonna run away. If you're feeling angry, you're gonna want to attack something. If you're sad, you're not gonna want to deal with anything at that time, right? But yeah, those are some really good definitions.
Yeah, I like them. And here's another one too, because I think that this plays a huge part where you're not just dealing with yourself, because we are social beings. Emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
What is that?
That's awesome.
Your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others, and your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior and relationships. I've struggled with it.
That actually brings up a story that actually goes into emotions. So I'd say like it was quite recently actually in the workplace. It was like I was during my internship, I was going through some things and I was all over the place and time was just not going fast at all. It was dragging. And then I went back to my philosophical roots. I started studying again, and I found this branch called Stoicism. So a lot of people,
I remember when you
do you remember
had
that?
this conversation?
Yeah, it's like Stoicism. People are like they disregard it because they think it's like voiding out or nullifying your emotions. When it's not like that. It's the emotional intelligence. Like you have the ability to recognize your emotion and control it instead of letting it run rampant and control you.
So it goes back to like self-awareness then. If you don't know who you are as a person, then you'll believe anything that people say about you. So again, that would arise a negative or positive emotion, I guess.
Right. And I think that's following your passion, right? If you have a direction that you're trying to go and you
want to sway you.
Have steps to get there, then you're not going to let all these other obstacles come in the way because you know what your mission is, right? But if you don't, and you're like going this way or veering off this way, it makes it easier to take those on, and that's not what we want for sure.
So I guess, how do you develop that self-awareness?
That's a great question. I'll tell you how I do. I'll be honest, I don't know if I have the best self-awareness, right? I feel like I come off a little too cocky or egotistical sometimes, and it's something I'm working on. I need to listen more. I need to listen more, but it's more a defense mechanism than anything. I think what I am working on in terms of answering your question is I think we have to be around people that support us more than anything.
And what if you don't have that?
So you find it. You find it by following your passion, right? If there's certain things that you're good at, then go towards those things. Doesn't mean just earning a living yet, right? Like I started my dream job today, right? I wasn't earning a living helping adolescents over the past 3 years. Now I get to do it, but like I was grinding, right? And some days were great, some days sucked, you know, but I wanted to do that because I wanted to stay true to what I knew that I believe was the right thing to do. And the people that support me now are here. You're here. You're here. You're here. You know, my mom, I got friends. No one's calling in. I'm just I got friends. Listen, the people that support me have given me advice on this, on where we need to make this better. We're all learning about ourselves, you know, in doing this, which I think the fact that we're all willing to be this vulnerable on live, I think is awesome, you know, but again, I'm doing this because I'm following my passion and I don't want anything to hold me back from doing that. So in short, to answer your question, I try and stay true to my passion, which as I was defining that or even looking for that, I tried to just work hard. I tried to work hard and I tried to do what I liked, what I felt I really wanted to do. And I let those things kind of align as I went along, but I kept working hard.
So would you say there's a certain amount of risk taking involved in self-awareness? Like you just can't have it figured out all the time. You just have to, you know.
You're going to fail, right? You have to understand, like, so one example, when I took over the manager position at my last company, I never managed people before, aside from in the military. You know, I was a squad leader, but I knew that I could do better than what was in place. And I knew that I would bust my butt to do what I needed to do to get us to where I thought we needed to be. We had our best year. I had my best year.
But were you target driven or were you empathetic towards the people around you?
It's the latter, the people around me. You know, and I didn't.
So were you compassionate towards the people around you and let them see your vision as to the target? Because some people are just really target. I'm speaking for myself. I was very target driven. And then I lost a lot of teammates because of that. I was so focused and honed in on target. But when I became empathetic and showed them and help them understand my vision as to why we're all going to get to that target and how it benefits all of us, that's when all of a sudden it was less work. And I tapped into my self-awareness. I'm like, I do not have to be so tyrant to get everyone to drive there. So
that's a good question. I think that I am a tyrant by nature.
Is it the military?
Napoleon.
I'm not talking bad about military, but
I gotta talk up to everybody, man. Y'all all so big. No, I think that I have a controlling air about me. You sent me the.
We should actually about that. No, in a good way. I think the way that was true evidence of emotional intelligence. The way we handled it. So I'm gonna talk about this story. So I had texted Chris because I was not disappointed, but I wanted to get my point across. But the way the text was I wanted to make sure he saw what I was seeing. I didn't expect him to agree with me, but I did want him to just value my opinion. And I laid down the facts. I think that's just the best way of doing it. I laid down the facts. I told him the whys, the pros and cons. And he, thank God, agreed with me. And he delivered the message back well. But I think that's a really great way of how colleagues work good together. And so with Dom as well. Dom just balances it all out.
Even keel.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I think that was a really great way of how you showed your leadership of saying, okay, got it. I saw your point. I don't agree with this part, but I agree with this. Right. Let's compromise. That is self-awareness and emotional intelligence in itself.
I'm learning. I think
it was good.
It's a daily struggle.
I'm still here, and you're here, and everybody's here.
I know.
So.
Well, again, it comes to I think it comes down to being confident.
Yeah.
Following your passion, though. You know, I think if two people have the same interest in mind of what their
same
goals
goal.
are, it's a lot easier to align them. you know, versus one person here. You know, it's like, oh, there's so much else that can come in the middle of that. So again, if you're listening in, we're here on intellectualradio.com. If you're listening on the radio, it's Instagram, Your Passion 1 ST, Your Passion First. You know, see it. We got any comments on Instagram yet? No.
I will jump on there right now.
Check it out. We appreciate y'all joining in. The goal is to have a speaker on every week that's a professional, that's passionate about what their profession is. Some people are finding their passion. Some people are defining it, and some people are following it. I want to hear from everyone. Anyone that's doing any of those three things, I want to be inspired. I think there's people out there that need to be inspired. Just to, you know, recap a little bit, like a big part of my new job is motivating, coaching, mentoring, but also providing the right resources to overcome barriers to adolescents ages 18 to 24, and maybe even a little higher. I think we really want to target that age range that is lacking support in those areas. And so part of me and my premise behind hosting this is I want to really be able to help them as I reach out to them. I want them to have a place to feel safe calling into to discuss what challenges they're facing, because I think it's okay to talk about barriers that you're overcoming. It's healthy. It's good to talk about it because it shows you what you went through, but it also lets you know what you don't want to go back to, right? And how to tee yourself up so that you can continue to follow your passion and do what you love. That's why we're all here, right? Doing what we love. So what's a hurdle that you've had to overcome that first comes to mind with security, other than just grinding? What's like a hurdle?
I would say the number one hurdle that comes to mind immediately is just my conditioning as an IT professional. You know, when you work in IT, everyone tells you that to get to that next level, you need this certification or this or that, or, you know, they all kind of, you know, your job is like what you're required to do on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
So you're not really taught much more than that. And then everyone in your role is kind of telling you, hey, you don't need to know this because you're not doing this. You know, you don't need to know networking. You're not a network engineer.
Right,
you know, guy, you're a help desk guy. Why do you need to know this? Right. So you kind of get thrown into this this loop of like, man, should I even try, or should I really go and try this, and should I do this? So I found that a lot of times I had to be very careful about who I shared my goals with. I really had to stay focused, and I had to find a way.
That's deep.
Yeah. I mean,
why do you say that? Just get a little bit more intricate there.
Definitely. I say that because your focus is everything. I mean, if you lose that, you have it's over. It's over. You might as well not even try. If somebody gets inside of your head and tells you can't do something and you start to listen to that, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
They just stopped you there. I mean, you can't get beyond that point. So you really have to dig deep and make some sacrifices. Maybe I'm not going to have this conversation with this person. I still like this person. They're still awesome, but I'm just probably not going to talk to them about that anymore. Right. You know, if I'm excited about this, I'm going to talk to people who are excited for me. You know, I'm not going to really share this with people who I know are going to take that away.
Right.
You know, I need this momentum.
Right.
When those obstacles show up, you need that momentum. And if you can't bring it up, or you can't find a way to get it, I mean, you're just going to stop there, you know?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I found that was the number one barrier for me. I don't feel like I have too much of a struggle with figuring things out. You know, the technical stuff, I can go home, I can study that on my own.
Right. I
can find labs, I can figure those things out. But the people portion, you know, that's really huge. If you don't know how to navigate those waters, man, you're going to have a tough time.
Yeah.
You know, you could be the smartest guy in the world, but like if somebody comes up to you and says that, you know, you're a moron, and that's enough to take you out, that's enough to take you out. Doesn't matter what you know.
Yeah.
Just like a firewall, right? You can have a fancy firewall, but if someone sends a great phishing email and then your employee clicks on it, it's a wrap. You know, same way with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Patty Bogosh, who was a former colleague of mine and mentor, and just someone I really looked up to. She was just firm and got out what she needed to get out, and got the job done. She said, emotional intelligence, it's a way to positively manipulate your energy. And like that just always stuck with me. And manipulation seems like such a bad word, but in the big scheme of things, if you're manipulating to do the right thing, sometimes you got to manipulate, right? You got to use what you have to get what you need.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's so hard. I think it took me a while to be comfortable doing that, because you don't want to feel like you're rubbing your colleagues the wrong way.
Right.
But you also want to make sure that you're doing what you're passionate about and staying true to what it is you like and what your mission is. And so it's just always been interesting for me to balance that and really what that means. Interesting. Denora, let me ask you a question. You good? You good with questions? All right.
Bring it.
So describe a time when you made a big mistake at work, and how do you, matter of fact, not to put you on the spot, but we talked about something a few weeks ago where you kind of made a big mistake.
Is it my current?
Huh? I think so. I think on your current project where it was.
Oh, it was a financial mistake.
Yeah.
Yes, I made a financial mistake. I miscalculated, and when I mean financial mistake, these are high ticket items. So we're not talking about like $2. We're probably talking about 50,000. It was a miscalculation, and I felt personally confident that I was going to fix it, just because I knew I was going to fix it. I don't know. I just put it out there. But my boss didn't think I was going to fix it. They had a big meeting about it. Everybody was brought in. And I'm really just calm, cool, and collected, because I had to control my emotions, because if I showed fear that I made a mistake, I'm only going to feed it and not resolve it. So for me, I was keeping it calm. I already had a plan in place. And even when I spoke to my client, I explained to them, again, it goes back to explanation and having them understand your vision. It was a miscalculation. I understand if you don't want to do business with me, but don't let this reflect the company. Right. It was my error. I took ownership for it. Yeah. So not only did she pay for it, but she bought more stuff. And tomorrow's actually the big day. So yeah, the project came out wonderful. But I kept a positive attitude. And I'm not just saying this to say it in public, but I was really calm about it. Because you were
calm on the phone. I was like, how much money is it?
It's only 50,000. It's only Alexis. But yeah, you just got to keep it cool. And it goes back to like, really, I wasn't trying to control my emotions. I just really did believe in myself. Yeah. I really did. It goes back to self-awareness. And people make mistakes, guys. It's life. Yeah. I think I didn't lose my job, but it's life.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that story. Yeah. Dom, what? I know you kind of are more recently into your new job, right? A couple of weeks in.
Yep.
Is there anything that just bothers the heck out of you so far?
That bothers me?
It just like, even if it's just someone walking by, like, and walking by too close to your dad. I know I'm being, but is there anything that, even if it's a process piece or something about your job or anything?
I'm really gonna change that up on you, but I can't say that, because the way I look at it, just like anything that I really get aggravated with, or anything that I feel emotional about at work, or anywhere for that matter, is just a reflection of myself. Right. So it's like I have to understand why before I can feel that emotion. So I'd say if there's one thing that bothers me at work, sometimes it's probably me. Yeah. But other than that,
just getting inside your own head about things.
Yeah, and that's something like you guys had mentioned before, that you just have to be self-aware about, and then learn to control it and understand.
Yeah.
But it helps.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good. And I think it's not the worst thing to be an overanalyzer of yourself. But I think that if you're a perfectionist, there's also that balance of, okay, it's as best I'm going to get it within the time requirements that I have. And you have to just be happy with that sometimes. Yeah. It's interesting. I was talking with a guy I placed at Ernst & Young, and he's a pen tester, but he went on a project, and he just wanted to do it so good, right? And then he was on his second project. He just wanted to do it, but he wasn't getting any of these projects done on time. And he was trying to do more than what the client requirements were asking. And so it's like, you don't got to do everything unless that's your job to do everything, right? You got to do what your mission at hand is, and you got to define what that is, whether that be your passion or just that task for today, and walk through those steps. And I think that's where we get lost sometimes, is like we think so grandiose. I am definitely guilty of that. But we forget to walk backwards to where we are right now and then follow it back up.
Right.
So,
Very true.
I got a lot of questions here. I want to dig inside your head a little bit more. Again, we're on intellectualradio.com. If you'd like to call in and you're going through a challenge right now, as it relates to work. We don't want to hear any personal, my husband, I don't know. That's a for real therapist there. I have trouble with those issues. I'm just saying. But I've helped place a lot of people over the past 10 years, and over the past 3.5 years, I've done quite a bit of coaching and mentoring. And again, that's what's inspired me here to want to do more with that, because I am so passionate about it. There's the sacrifice of everyone knowing everything about me now, which I'm okay with. I'm okay having that vulnerability at the point in my life that I am now, because I'm at a point where I want to grow and I want to take everything in as much as I can. Part of that is hearing from folks out there that have inspirational stories. I get moved by those. Those give me more fuel for my tank for the next day. So 708-223-8953. Would love to hear from you. If you're going through a challenge, if you've become a challenge and you've gotten somewhere that you thought you could or you didn't think you could, but you're there. I would love to hear from you and share your story.
Chris, I have a question for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being a recruiter, how important is emotional intelligence when applying for a job position?
I would say it ties in to the research that you do on the company, right? Because it's really hard to be in tune with people if you don't know who they are and what they represent. And you're not going to always get that from just doing research on a company. You try and do more research after you get into the interview process. But I think while you're doing that research, what are the company's core values? What are certain things they do for their employees? Go onto their LinkedIn page, go onto their different social media sites. Where are they volunteering at? What do they care about other than what their product is and does? How do they demonstrate that? And then I think you can start to piece together what kind of company or culture it is. And then you can understand how you emotionally connect with different people there.
Would you say that's going to be the most important thing now for the job market in the next maybe year or so, of having that higher emotional intelligence, just because everything's IT related nowadays and everything's so automated and there's less personal connection? Would you say that emotional intelligence is top 10 skills to have?
I would say it's probably one of the number one, if not the number one, because it dives into everything else. Right? Because we're social beings. Like, if you could work remotely and sit at home and never have to interact with someone, but then you're just working for yourself and then you have no clients and then you have no customers. So unless you're just doing all internet and you can just type, right? But you're still interacting. So I think you need to have that sense of how your emotions interact with other people. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm still working on it. I feel like I'm very brash. I feel like I turn a lot of people away, but I feel like the people that I draw near, they're like me. They're kind of just no filter. It is what it is, So I think I'm working on it, because from a sales perspective, I know I need to get better at not being more presentable, but having more tact, maybe. And I don't even know if tact is the right word. Anyway, that's a whole nother life story about what I'm trying to learn.
So you're saying that, yes, you do agree that that is a strong skill set to have, but how do you measure that?
I'm working on it, to be honest.
Well, as a company in the work environment, how do you measure that in the work environment? Like, for example, when I would apply for these organizations, I had to take these crazy tests. And that's how I got management position, because I tested into a management position because of my emotional intelligence and my leadership skills. So how is that measured? Like, yeah, how is that measured, I guess?
So
in your world.
In my world, and it's interesting that you say that, because in the process that we're setting up right now, we're at our application process piece, and how do we set up, how do we onboard different students, and how we assess them from a skills perspective as well as personality perspective. I'm doing research on those. There's something called a PI, and don't quote me, I think it's predictive index test. And I'm in the middle of research. This is my job tomorrow, is to research what this is and what other tools can help. But I think tools like that assess how a person thinks and how they react to different things, it can be measured. I don't know what the right, and thank you for jarring that, because it's something I need to do more research on to figure out what's going to be the right one to use given our age demographic, and
depending
where some of them are. Yeah. So I don't have an answer. I will get you an answer.
Sounds good.
I will.
I know that I read this book, and I think this is where the whole emotional intelligence kind of was driven by Daniel Goleman. Emotional intelligence. I was reading a couple of there's 15 traits of it. And if you fall under that bracket, from what I've read, you fall under that bracket, then you kind of fall into an emotional intelligence. I mean, that's not the way to do it from my understanding. You have to go to a psychologist or take these well-written tests. But yeah, I was reading a couple of things in regards to that. But yeah, Daniel Goleman.
Okay.
He's been around. He's a huge speaker, TED Talks, all that stuff. So it's really awesome.
Yeah. Goleman. And it's a tough one, man. What do you think? How would you handle that in terms of defining what emotional intelligence? And is there, you're not emotionally intelligent and then you are, if you just cross this line, or what would you say?
Some traits.
That's tough. Once again, I'm not an expert on this subject matter. I'm not totally sure, but I'll say from just personal experience here, how people deal with obstacles. How do they deal with things that are unexpected? When you get unexpected stimuli, you go back to what you know. Are you going to go back to what you know, or are you going to take a risk? Are you just going to take a risk on yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to bet on me. We'll see how this goes, and am I going to learn from this? And what am I going to learn, and is it going to help me in the future? You can fall on your face and learn a ton, or you can just not try at all, and then you're stagnant, right? So I feel like when it comes to that kind of thing, I guess I would measure it by asking people questions about times that they have had that have been tough, and how do they respond? Did you respond with I give up and I'm not going to try anymore, this is it for me, I'm done? Or did you respond with, all right, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just going to figure it out, and when I figure it out, I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to teach other people, and I'm going to also be able to recognize that in other people too, right? So that's how I measure it.
And it's guiding that attitude and those emotions, right? Because those tie in together, I think, so much. But it's positively manipulating your energy. If you feel a certain type of way, and you know that it's not going to be received well by such and such, you need to convey it in a different way.
So if that person doesn't respond to you, I'm sure you've bumped into this. What if the person doesn't respond to you? You're trying to resolve a conflict.
Absolutely. And
you're standing your ground, and you're standing in your truth. Right. But what if that person just doesn't see it just because they really can't?
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
I take ownership for my communication. I don't see that person as an obstacle. I see it as an opportunity for me to figure out what to do. Right. So if I'm communicating, I can, even if they disagree with me, I got to be flexible here, because I can't see this person as a problem, or else this problem is not going to get solved. Right. If I see you as a problem, we have a disagreement, and I just say, I'm done, Denori, I don't care what you say. The conversation is over. right?
Yeah, I want to continue to bicker and tell you that you're completely wrong. How do
Yeah.
you walk away from? I will follow you. How do you walk away from that?
Hey, follow me. You know,
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it
Okay.
out. If I'm flexible and you happen not to be, then you're still going to get what you want, and I'm still going to get what I want too. Because once you are willing to like hear my point of view,
Yeah.
at that point, I can start telling you, hey, this is what I think we should do. This is what I think we should. Here's an idea. Maybe we can do this. And I feel like when you meet fire with fire, you don't really get anywhere with it, right?
I
So
agree.
like
Yeah,
people
good point.
people want their point of view. You know, they don't care. Like they want their point of view, and you got to let them have that. You know, like regardless of where they're coming from or if they know enough or not, like just let them have that, right? And then offer your point of view. And if it's reasonable enough, they're willing to listen. They may even change their mind and say, hey, you know what? Let's go with what Sydney said. That makes
You
sense.
gave them facts and you help them
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. And
You
also
are emotionally intelligent. Wow. I'm no expert, but I'm just saying. That's awesome. Would you guys say that, and this is a collective question just because I'm pondering, would you say that in the work environment, the lines of when it comes to resolve like conflict, it has been blurred? Like there's no boundaries nowadays? Because I'm speaking from experience. I feel like the boundaries are being blurred when there's a conflict. There's just not that level of respect anymore, no matter what profession you're in. Have you guys experienced that, or is it just me?
I think I've experienced it to a certain degree. I think it comes down to how transparent you are with your team.
Got it.
And that needs to be top down and bottom up. It's hard to implement some of those things, and especially if you're not starting the team from anew and you're not in charge of the team. I think it's hard to go in and be a decision maker, so to speak. But I think, you stay true to what you believe and what you want to do, and you push those agendas forward.
Awesome.
And it's not in a negative way or a manipulative way, but I think you try and do the right thing.
Yeah, I like that because I feel like in situations where I haven't even been close to being a leader in any capacity, I took ownership for something, right? So I came into the meeting, and as a help desk guy, I knew that we needed to make some changes with one of our processes. And I knew that I had a chance to speak in that meeting, right? But I knew also that maybe nobody was going to care, right? So I was like, well, I can only own what I can do. So if they give me a chance to talk, I'm just going to say it. And if everybody thinks I'm, a moron for saying it, then it is what it is, right?
Right.
And maybe it'll change. And I just said it, and the boss was like, "Hey, Sydney, that's a great idea. Let's figure out a way to do it." And I was like, "Wow, that gave me more confidence, right?"
Yep.
And that's how I started building confidence with that, right?
Yeah.
Those little risk-taking maneuvers and just figuring it
You
out.
gotta just and what's the worst you're gonna say? No, that's wrong. Right. And so then you try and figure out, like, part of it too is do your research. Don't just blurt stuff out.
Yeah.
Right. But you were
definitely.
confident because you checked, you double checked,
Yeah.
you rechecked.
You do those what we call in cybersecurity. My man Dominic might know sanity checking. We do a lot of sanity checking.
I'm too new for that, I think.
We do some sanity checking if it's something that you are just unfamiliar with or you're not sure of.
Yeah.
Double, triple, quadruple check it. Yeah.
Check, overcheck.
So I have a controversial question for you guys, since I'm the only female on this panel.
So is this a question we can ask to everyone out there?
Oh, God, please, yes.
708.
I want the females to call for this one.
223-8953. We're here on intellectualradio.com.
This is for my females.
Denora's got a question for us.
I have a question,
all.
and I want my females to chime in. And I'm the only female panel, so I need my girls to back me up on this. So, guys, are women more emotionally intelligent or men, in your opinion? I'll give you the facts and the statistics, but go for it. What do you think?
Why don't you tell us those
Yeah.
first?
No. I need the females to call right now.
Polarizing question there.
No, it's just, let's be open.
Yeah.
Because there is a stigma about.
I think the stigma is that women are.
Okay. More emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
You're saying this right now in public.
I'm saying
Okay.
the stigma is that women are more emotionally intelligent because there's a deeper connection there, I think, that they can have with women to women and women to men that I don't know if men have as much.
Okay.
That's why I say stigma.
So you
I
stick
think
with
women have more of a loving side to them. You know, this is going in a direction I don't know if
That's
I
okay.
want.
Sydney, that's what we want. We want him to be uncomfortable.
I'm trying to be politically correct here.
No, we can be. We just got to say the truth
You're
of what
right.
people are thinking.
Yeah,
Sydney, what about you?
I think just the workplace
Yeah.
specifically, I find that emotional intelligence really it's more specific to like the situations that we encounter, right?
Okay.
I'm not going to talk to people at work about my personal life, so I don't know
Okay.
how emotionally intelligent they are in those areas, right?
Mhm.
But I may talk to them about getting a project done or not, or
Mhm.
responding to an email in a timely manner, or talking to a client
If
and
you made a mistake.
or if you made a mistake, how do you
Mm.
talk about it with the person
Yeah.
that you made the mistake? And how are you gonna apologize to them? Are you gonna let them know immediately? Are you gonna tell them if there's gonna be a delay or not? Like, how are you gonna deal with all those things, right? I feel like when it comes to women and men in those particular scenarios, I feel like that's a measure of how much experience you have, right?
He
In
can't
life,
sit around that way. Yeah.
that's a totally different conversation. Now, your statistics may be based on that,
No,
and
no.
you may be right, but I think in the corporate world, it's really a matter of experience. Like, I walk into many situations I did not know anything about, and you could. And if you would have seen me at that time, you would assume that I was not emotionally intelligent whatsoever, because I was probably responding from a place of just inexperience. But once I learned more about it, people saw me as someone that they could trust. Immediately, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's saying. He knows the vernacular of the language that we use in this field. This is somebody I can listen to. I feel like people were more receptive to me once I put that effort in. But before that happened, I definitely was stumbling a lot.
That's a good point. He just based it on facts. We're
coming to you. I know. So I mean, you got statistics, so you're gonna prove me wrong regardless. But I feel like it's definitely like women, but at the same time, I also feel like it is subjective because, like Chris said, there's just something in the way of guys, and I think that like a big part of that is pride. I think pride gets in the way of like emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah,
that ego. A little bit
the ego, like to hate to
big
admit you're
time.
wrong, or like have to fix something, or go to somebody ask for help.
yeah.
Like it's rough, and so like in that aspect, I definitely say women are more emotionally intelligent, but I don't feel like it's something that not everyone can like. Everyone can reach it.
They're more vulnerable
absolutely.
with their
Yeah.
feelings, I think,
Yes.
than men are, because men are groomed to be, ooh, macho. We don't need help. We can do it all on our own, which I think closes some emotional doors for us. I know it has me, because I think I've come off that way sometimes, when really defense mechanism, right, for overcoming insecurities, right? So I think it's something that I think the black male as a whole population deals with that a lot.
Oh yeah,
because you're trying to keep your chest high, and sometimes you need to let your ego go in doing that. And there's just a balance there.
I think when it comes to pride, like Dominic was just saying, I really like that point you just made there. That is that's not conducive for a connection to be made, right? So like you said, your defenses go up, right? So you're not interested in connecting at that point. You're just interested in, being the man, right? Yeah. You don't care if anyone hears, you don't care if there's a connection made, a person understands. You just want them to hear you. Like, hey, I'm here, Right. I do believe that there's a large amount of that, in the male population, more than we deserve.
Guilty of it for sure.
I'm totally guilty of it, man. I think that was my defense mechanism when I first started doing IT. I really didn't know what I was doing, and I was afraid for people to find that out, and I knew I wasn't studying. I knew I wasn't putting the effort in when I first started, and I was afraid that someone was going to notice. So I would try to come off more intelligent than I actually was. Yeah. So then when I started putting the work in, I was able to actually connect, and it blew my mind. I was like, I could share this information with someone and they would know about it, and they would actually share it back, and we can learn from each other. This is awesome, right? Yeah. So yeah, that is a struggle with a lot of us for sure.
Yeah. And I don't mean to, like, I grew up from 1.5, my dad was white, right? So I grew up interracial. So I try as much as possible not to divide things, But there's times to point lights at things, because I think if we don't, then we don't point to reality. And if we can't point to reality, then we can't invoke change.
Absolutely.
So you have to look at the reality of things sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's why, like, I feel like your question to Nora was very, like, it was like, okay, you get it from like everyone's point of view, because I grew up in a female dominant house. So like, I felt like I got both of those like aspects. And then I got my grandpa, shouts to my grandpa out there. So I feel like he was my like father figure. And then I had the women in my family to show me. So like, I felt like I got both. So it's like, you see everyone's point. It's really interesting that way.
So it is women. So based on statistics, and it was like a 2016 research study, but it's not because it's the gender. It's because as you mentioned, anybody can have this emotional intelligence. It's because people are, to rate that, you have to be empathetic, be able to communicate, which a man or woman can do.
Right.
But just women were a little bit more open towards it.
Gotcha.
That's all what it means. Not trying to slide here.
So empathetic.
Yeah. Empathetic, communication. And definitely number one, self-awareness. That was huge, meaning that you own up, as you had mentioned, Sydney, you own up to your wrongs. Communicate it, let it go, and not berating yourself. That's huge. Yeah. So it really didn't have to do with gender, but it's just that women have been, some women are okay. We've been taught to be okay to show our emotions and communicate. As you guys mentioned, men not really. Right. Specifically men of, like Hispanic background or Black, whatever the case may be. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't hit the cord. I know. I do that with my hands. I know. Sound check. Sound check.
It's my hands. I'm very animated. But so it goes from there. So that's where.
Awesome.
From there.
Yeah, it's life. Life is tough.
Life is life.
I think the tougher part is going through life and barriers and not following your passion.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I don't mind going through heartache, but I want it to be for something I'm heartfelt about. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Something that I believe in. And there's been times in my life where I just haven't. And again, some of that is balancing out your different passions, right? Here's something you're passionate about. You're trying to bring it up to here. Well, you got to bring this one down a little, right? It's balancing all that. But I think at the end of the day, I wish that everyone was passionate about how they earned a living, because the world would be a better place, because people would care more about their products. They would care more about what they were doing as they went into work. They would care more about what they did when they got home and not be running to that, because they can run anywhere they want because they're free to do what they want to do and they're living that passion. So that's what inspired me to want to host this radio show, podcast, focus circle, whatever you want to call it.
Forgot the hashtag.
Yeah, hashtag. I want it to be an open place for people to call in, talk about barriers and challenges they're facing as they follow their passion. So I appreciate y'all tuning in. Again, if you are on the radio station, Instagram is Your Passion 1ST. Again, that's Your Passion first. And if you so decide to call in next week, we will be streaming live on intellectualradio.com. The call-in number, 708-223-8953. As always, thank you a million times over to my co-hosts Dominic and Denora, and an awesome round of applause to Sydney CROUT, who is on his way to doing bigger things in the security space.
Yes, sir.
And we just appreciate you being a part of this, man.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, we'll see y'all next week. Same that time, Tuesday, same that channel. Tuesdays at 7.
Powerful, compelling emotion or desire for something.
Hey, this is Chris Thomas here on intellectualradio.com.
It's Principles of Passion.